The siren's wail pierced the quiet of the small coastal town of Clearwater, a sound that meant only one thing. The hurricane was closer than anyone had expected. Neighbors scrambled to board up windows and drag patio furniture inside. Streetlights flickered as the first gusts of wind rattled through the narrow streets. In a modest two-story house at the end of Seaglass Lane, 29-year-old Mia Carter stood frozen at her living room window. She had lived through storms before, but the news alerts this time were different. Words like record-breaking and life-threatening crawled across the bottom of the television screen. Mia's parents had driven inland the night before, urging her to come with them, but her younger brother Ethan had a late shift at the diner and insisted he'd meet them in the morning. Now, with the storm arriving hours earlier than predicted, Ethan was still nowhere in sight. The phone lines were down. Cell service was patchy at best. Mia's calls to Ethan went straight to voicemail. Each unanswered ring tightened the knot in her chest. She was not the brave one in the family. That was Ethan, fearless, funny, always the first to volunteer for anything daring. Mia preferred routines and quiet evenings. She was the reliable sister, the careful planner. But as the wind howled and rain battered the windows, a thought cut through her fear like lightning. If I don't go find him, who will? Mia pulled on her raincoat and boots, grabbed a flashlight, and stepped into the night. The wind nearly knocked her sideways. Trees groaned overhead, their branches bending like they might snap at any moment. Water pooled across the road, reflecting the ghostly glow of swaying street lamps. The diner was only 10 blocks away, but each step felt heavier than the last. She kept her eyes down to avoid flying debris and tried not to imagine the headlines she'd read after past storms. Rescue. Crews discovering cars swept away or people trapped in collapsed buildings. Halfway there, she heard a faint cry. At first she thought it was the wind playing tricks, but then it came again, a thin, high-pitched voice. She turned her flashlight toward a cluster of bushes near an overturned trash bin. A golden retriever puppy, soaked and shivering, stared back at her. Its leash was tangled in the branches. "Oh, sweetheart," Mia murmured, kneeling despite the rain lashing her back. Her fingers trembled as she freed the knot. The puppy whimpered but didn't resist when she scooped it into her arms. For a moment she hesitated. Returning home to shelter the animal would be safer, but she pictured Ethan out there alone, and the decision was made. Tucking the puppy inside her coat, she pressed on. The diner's neon sign flickered weakly in the distance. When Mia finally reached the door, she found it locked and dark inside. She pounded on the glass. "Ethan! It's Mia!" Only the roar of the wind answered. She circled to the back alley. A faint light glowed under the kitchen door. She banged on it until it creaked open and a familiar face appeared. Mr. Jenkins, the elderly cook who had worked there since before Mia was born. "Mia, what are you doing out here?" he shouted over the storm. "Ethan left over an hour ago." "Said he was heading home." Her stomach dropped. If he'd left earlier, he should have beaten her to the house. "Unless the bridge," she whispered. The shortcut home crossed an old wooden bridge over Clearwater Creek. In this weather, the creek would be a raging river. Without another word, Mia turned and ran. The creek was nearly unrecognizable, swollen with rain and debris. The wooden planks of the bridge trembled as water churned beneath them. And there, halfway across, was Ethan. He was crouched low, one arm wrapped around the railing, the other clutching a young boy. The child, maybe 7 or 8, was crying so hard his tiny body shook. "The current's too strong," Ethan shouted as he saw her. "The bridge is breaking!" Mia's heart pounded. The far side of the bridge was already splintering. If they waited, it would collapse completely. "Move toward me, one step at a time," she yelled. "I can't carry him and keep balance." Mia scanned the surroundings. A heavy tree branch floated near the bank. She grabbed it, wading into the icy water until it reached her knees. The current tugged like invisible hands, but she planted her feet and extended the branch toward them. "Hold on to this," she ordered. Ethan wrapped the boy's arms around the branch. Inch by inch, Mia pulled, muscles screaming with effort. The puppy squirmed inside her coat, but she held fast. At last the boy reached the bank. Mia dragged him onto solid ground, then turned back for her brother. The bridge groaned. With a final ear-splitting crack, a section of railing gave way. Ethan leaped, barely catching the edge where Mia knelt. She grabbed his wrists, every tendon in her arms straining as she hauled him up. They collapsed together on the muddy shore, the boy sobbing between them. Moments later, the bridge gave a final shudder and disappeared downstream. They hurried to a nearby community center that had been converted into an emergency shelter. Volunteers ushered them inside, wrapping blankets around their soaked bodies. The boy's parents arrived soon after, their tearful gratitude almost overwhelming. Mia barely heard them. Her mind replayed the scene at the bridge, the weight of her brother in her hands, the roar of the water below. Hours passed. The storm raged on, but inside the shelter people shared flashlights, food, and quiet reassurances. The puppy slept curled against Mia's side. Ethan sat beside her, his usual grin tempered by exhaustion. "You saved us," he said finally, voice rough. Mia shook her head. "We saved each other." But in her heart, she knew something had changed. She had always believed courage belonged to people like her brother, those who sought out risk and adventure. Yet when the moment came, when life demanded it, she hadn't hesitated. The strength had been there all along, waiting. By morning, the winds had calmed. The sun rose over a battered but still standing town. Streets were littered with branches, and power lines sagged, but neighbors emerged to help one another. News crews arrived, capturing stories of rescues and narrow escapes. When a reporter asked for her name, Mia flushed and mumbled something about just doing what anyone would do. But that evening, as she sat on her porch with Ethan and the puppy, who now wore a bright red collar and answered to "Lucky," she allowed herself a quiet pride. "Always thought you were the brave one," she told her. "Brother, you were," he replied simply. Mia gazed at the horizon where the sea met the sky, calm once more. The storm had tested her in ways she never imagined, stripping away every comfort and plan. Yet in that chaos she had discovered a truth stronger than any hurricane. Courage isn't the absence of fear, but the choice to act in spite of it. And sometimes, the hero you've been waiting for is the one who's been inside you all along.